Saying no provides way more freedom to stay true to like the value that you want to provide. So there's a lot of benefits that always come back to being what can you do to articulate the value that you want to provide. I followed through on the commitments that I've had. As new things came up, I've learned to say, love to help. I can point you in the right direction, but maybe it's not me. When my coach was like, hey, you got to start saying no to some things to get you focused on what you're uniquely good at and the goals that you want to achieve. Will those same people really remember that 5 years from now? That I bailed on Thursday, March 19th or whatever it was, and I didn't go play golf at E9 for 4 hours, right? If I'm not moving the needle on my priorities. So like personally, I've had to say no to some social things. When you're saying no, you're freeing up time so that you can say yes to the right opportunities. The way I see that happening, and I've seen it happen in the past, and I continue to see it happening with successful people, if you say no to the pseudo right things, or maybe not quite right things, right? It's taking time and energy and effort away from things that are more on point or exact, like the roadmap that you're heading down. I started implementing just in my own business meetings. Every week we have a leadership meeting, we go through things, and what I got better at, and I'm still working on, is like, okay, whatever the topic is that we're talking about, is this a problem I need to solve, for one, and is it a decision I need to make? And if it is, can somebody else on the team solve and make the decision? It's hard, but in the moment, I have to pause with my response. I have to let the team speak. Welcome back to Play Life Differently. First, I want to take a minute. It's been crazy couple months, but I want to give a shout out to some of the things that I did a couple months ago. It was an incredible 2-day, 3-day experience. I got to meet with Noah DePasquale, serial entrepreneur with Epic Golf. Phenomenal time with Noah. And so I want to give Noah a shout out. That was just incredible. A lot of great insights. So if you haven't, check it out. Play Life Differently. Lots of people checking us out on Instagram, but do me a favor. Click subscribe on our YouTube channel. We've got nearly 150,000 views and just a little bit of content out there, but not many people are subscribing. So do yourself a favor, and please do us a favor. Click subscribe so you get more of our content and great insights from some serial successful people. I also want to give a shout out to superstar NBA champion, San Antonio Spur, Bruce Bowen. Had an amazing time, super humble, very successful, not so great with the Texas wedge, except for maybe one. So check it out, click subscribe, you'll get all of the content. So let's dive in a little bit. So the last couple months have been insane. So we came off of a bender with Noah and Bruce a couple months ago, and man, was that a ton of fun. A lot of great one-liners, a lot of great insight, struggles, successes, how they deal with life. And since then, it's just been a little bit crazy. My own businesses and personal life have been a little crazy. Lots going on, but it was kind of interesting. I want to start today and talk a little bit about when you start seeing some of those opportunities. We've talked about this in past podcasts, right? We've talked about when you open your mind to seeing opportunities, more opportunities come up, and you get in the habit then of saying yes a fair amount, because you get a little bit, at least I have gotten a little bit addicted to the successes and the opportunities that keep arising. I was feeling probably for about 2 months, just overwhelmed with all of the yeses, helping people. I get calls like, hey, you got like an hour of my time? And I would say yes. And I found that some of the things that I was doing was just, I was saying yes a lot. Doing my own reading, I've talked about, I do, morning readings. I read all these books on entrepreneurship. I follow some of the greats that are out there, Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, Alex Hormozy. I'm following their content as well, and reading their books. And it's really hard to get singularly focused when you're seeing so many opportunities. And so the last 2 months, my own business coach, which I'm actually excited to share, like she's going to be on our podcast here come up as well. She made a comment in one of our sessions where she was like, what are you doing for you? Like, are you saying no to things so that you can make more room for your unique ability, which is, a coaching technique that's out there as well. I want to give a shout out to the unique ability people. But she said, it sounds like you're spreading yourself a little thin. And maybe that's why you're feeling a little, more tired than normal, a little drained emotionally. I thought a lot about that. It's hard to do when you've already kind of committed. So I followed through on the commitments that I've had. And as new things came up, I've learned to say, love to help. I can point you in the right direction, but maybe it's not me. I'm happy to, spend maybe 15 minutes with you versus giving you an hour and a half, 2 hours, or more time than that, just so that I can protect my peace of mind and my own well-being. That's incredibly hard when you're so driven by just kind of the snowball effect of opportunities and having some successes along the way. Happy to say, like, I actually have a little bit more energy today than I did probably 6 weeks ago. And which is probably why I've been a little bit, pulled back from doing a podcast with just myself, because I didn't really have a clear direction of what I needed to like share with you all. What's been interesting in that time, the last 2 months, is I got clear on what it is that I've been trying to do. And I'm going to share personally some of the things that, like, my goals in my business is, we've got fiscal years that we're working on. That's been working on that for about 10 months. We've got about a month and a half to go about that. And we are on pace to do 25+% growth on that, which is fantastic. But we just been chugging along that I hadn't really stopped to take a breather and say, okay, my gosh, where are we at? I mean, we track our KPIs, our metrics, and what we need to do. And we're far beyond what we had originally planned in the business plan. But it made me say, okay, great. We're like doing the things we need to do. But that was like on the business side. But on the personal side, I was exhausted. But I turned 49 in March, 48 and a half. So 18 months to the 50th birthday. I am re-engaged in some health stuff, because I've always kind of struggled. Like, I just work. I wasn't really taking care all that much of myself. And so I came up with this saying, which I've talked about before, right? Little things that kind of keep you motivated. And it was fit by 50. So I was like, I'll give myself 18 months. I'm not going to pressure myself and try and get healthy in 6 months or 9 months. I'll do it 18. And it was slow going. It truly was slow going. I started in September last year. But I was consistent with it, right? I'm getting a massage once a week. I'm doing yoga once a week. I'm 20, 30-minute workouts, 4 days a week, and trying to eat healthy, and nothing was really happening, right? But I was just like, well, it's 18 months. I gave myself the time. It was February 28th, weighed myself. I got the biomarkers, catches everything: BMI, body fat, muscle fat, all this stuff, water weight, all that stuff. It was not pretty. And that was February 28th. And here we are, April 17th. And I'm down like 15 and a half pounds, not from doing anything crazy. Like, I'm not doing, Ozempic. I'm not doing any of that stuff. When my coach was like, hey, you got to start saying no to some things to get you focused on what you're uniquely good at and the goals that you want to achieve. And so I just got really clear on that and started saying no. And I'm like, but I'm not saying no to the health stuff. Like, that's important. I don't want to wake up on March 26th of next year when I hit 50 and be disappointed that I failed at something that's been a 25-year issue for me. It really has been an issue. And I'm like, okay, so 6 weeks, February 28th, is that 6 weeks or something? Pretty dang close, right? I'm down like 15 and a half pounds. And but I've been working on it for 6 months. And so now it's just like the weight's coming off. I've got the energy. I was drinking 4 cups of coffee and 3 Diet Cokes and not drinking enough water. So I cut that out 6 weeks ago. Haven't touched a Diet Coke. I'm not drinking that much coffee. I'm drinking green tea. I'm eating healthy at night. And I'm doing my sauna 4 days a week. And, so like just these little things that have now become more routine in my life. I bought a bike this week because I'm going to get out there, start biking. And nothing crazy. I'm not going to go in a race. Like, that's not the deal, right? But I just different physical activities to break up kind of the monotony sometimes of just grinding all the time. It's been awesome. So part of that is the Fit by 50, knowing it's an 18-month journey for me. But now seeing some of the actual physical results is incredible. They often say, like, the results don't happen right away, right? It's the compound effect. It's like, it feels like you're not making any progress at all. And that was the deal for 5 months. And then all of a sudden, like, weight's just dropping off and I'm getting energy back. And, so I'm like, this is okay. Now I'm like even more jacked up, right? I like bought a bike so I could go riding this weekend. I'm not going to go ride 20 miles. Like, I'll probably make it 2, but I'm going to go do it for 20 minutes. Like, who knows, right? And so it's just these little things, but the compound effect, right? It starts off really slow and then it just starts to hockey stick. And I knew that to be true in like the business sense. And I've heard people say it can happen on the health side of things too. and all the health coaches that you could see on social media, they're all saying it, and you don't have to do anything crazy or, I think everybody's looking for these wins, but it truly is like a lifestyle decision. And Fit by 50, like I want to be healthier going into my 50s and 60s than I've ever been in my 30s and 40s. God willing, I'll get there, and I think I will, but it's more of a lifestyle change. I have no desire to drink as much as I used to. And I wasn't a crazy drinker to begin with, but it was a couple times a week, just at night, nightcap, whatever. But like now I'm like, I don't even have a desire to like try it. It's so easy to say no because it just doesn't give me the energy. And in the back of my mind, I'm saying Fit by 50. Watching portion controls and like I go out to dinner a lot with friends or clients or whatever it might be. It used to be hard to not finish my plate at a dinner. It used to be hard to like not finish or have a second helping at home because I'm home, right? You're like, you loosen the pants, you get comfortably, have another helping. Like it's just not happening because like I've seen the progress. And I was pretty consistent with it for about 5 months. And now it's even more consistent. And a short story. So I was out in Scottsdale for a wedding and I saw some friends. We met up for dinner. It was interesting because it was like 2 drinks, left some food on my plate. I remember going back to the hotel that night thinking to myself like, hey, that wasn't that bad. Like I remember, having like 6 or 7 drinks at dinners in the past and finishing the full plate. And it's so interesting. The little things that you change doesn't mean that you give up on the experience that you have. Like it didn't make dinner with my friends any different, but it made me feel better about myself at the end of the night, right? That I was able to follow through. And maybe I had a little more mashed potatoes than I should have had, or mac and cheese, like at the steakhouse, but that's fine. But I didn't have like 4 helpings of that. I don't know. Maybe you guys can relate to that, but like you're drinking, wine's flowing, cocktails, friends, you're laughing and just throw another scoop on the plate. That was the old me. And I just don't have the desire to fill the space with alcohol or food. That's like a little my own personal journey and the struggles that I've been dealing with for probably 20 years. So I'm excited to but don't worry, I'm not going to take my shirt off and show you my 6-pack because 1, I don't have it yet. And 2, I'm not in the fitness space, right? But so going back this last couple months where things have just been so hectic and not saying no to some of the things that were distractions from like my own personal goals. I thought about that too. And it's really hard to be happy in life if you're doing things for others or they get thrust upon you. I was saying yes to people that needed something from me because I want to be helpful. Like that's in my nature. I'm going to take care of people, my loved ones. And I've said this before, like I want to take care of the people in my world. So I can't do that if I'm not taking care of myself. And it seems counterproductive to be like, it almost seems like selfish in a way. But if I'm not here or I'm not at my best, I can't give my best. So that also came up with my coach, Heidi. And she's like, you're just always willing to give time and energy and effort and thoughts and crazy ideas. But how cloudy does that get if you're not at your best? And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And she's like, so what do you got to do? And I said, well, I have to start saying some no to some things. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to free yourself up to do the things that are your priorities and the power of saying no, which will allow you to focus on what's most important to you. So let me back up how that really looks, right? We're going to talk about when things come up, what's the process you go to stay focused on the things that you want to be focused on and when to say no and on what things should you be saying no. I think first off, you got to get crystal clear on what it is you're trying to achieve, right? So if it's a sales goal or it's a personal goal or it's a business goal, entrepreneurs get this, right? And successful entrepreneurs really get this. The most successful people say a lot more no's than they do yeses. And so those that are struggling to get to the next level probably have a bunch of things that they should be saying no to that they just don't, right? For whatever the reason. We'll talk about what maybe some of those reasons are, but there's this matrix of things that, maybe that you're really good at and you really enjoy. It's kind of your sweet spot. You have a ton of energy from those things and they motivate you, they keep you going. But you're really good, and it's really only the thing that you can do, right? It's your skill set, it's your talent. That's box 1, right? Then you've got some things that maybe you're good at, but you don't really enjoy it. It's got some energy, but not the kind of energy that keeps you going. But you're good at it. Then you've got this other box where like you're not that good at it, but you've got the skill set. You just don't want to do it, right? And you're not that good at it, but it drains you, right? And then you've got the 4th box, which is like you're not good at it and it drains you. So you got like these things, and so every decision should be run a little bit through that matrix. Now, if it was like Dwight Eisenhower that kind of came up with that, or, I know Unique Ability has something like that too. And I think most successful entrepreneurs use some sort of filter for that. When my coach brought it to my attention, what are you saying no to? And there wasn't a whole lot. I started implementing just in my own business meetings. Every week we have a leadership meeting, we go through things. And what I got better at, and I'm still working on, is like, okay, whatever the topic is that we're talking about, is this a problem I need to solve, for one? And is it or a decision I need to make? And if it is, can somebody else on the team solve it and make the decision? It's hard, but in the moment, I have to pause with my response. I have to let the team speak, right? I have to give them power to say, okay, this is a decision. And the easiest way I started doing that was I just said, okay, well, what do you, somebody brings a problem. I said, well, what do you think? I know the answer, right? I've been doing it. I've seen the problem before. It's, what I could see the path through the trees, right? Part of my skill set, I think one of my gifts is like, I could see the answer before a lot of people can see the answer. It's one of the reasons I take a lot of risks, because I know what the outcome should be. I don't always know how to get there, but I know what it should look like. I've had to pause and slow down and say, okay, well, what do you think? How would you solve this? And so then they start talking. And so part of being a leader is being patient enough to let other people solve the problem. There's a couple things that happen with that. The first is it gets your leadership team or your employees to start thinking critically for themselves, right? So my vision for my business is that I'm not making all these little decisions. I've got the vision of the business, but I don't even have to make operational decisions. I don't have to make financial decisions. I got to train the team to do that. I can't do that if I'm jumping in and solving it. I need them to experience solving the issues time and time and time and time again, so that in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, I don't even know the issues ever existed. They were solved before they even came to me. Being patient is incredibly important, for one, that the business will run without me, because they're solving problems, they're getting business done, they're growing the business without me being present in the day-to-day. That's a really hard patience skill to learn. But I promise you, if you take the time to do that and just ask, how would you solve that? What do you think? It comes up to, and you can guide along the answers. And ultimately, early on, you're probably gonna have to jump in at some point and solve it. But sometimes saying no doesn't mean you're actually not making the decision. It just means it's not my decision. It's their decision, or it's their solution. People talk a lot about empowering people on their teams and empowering employees. And when you become a leader and you're trying to grow, 10X is better than 2X, right? Like, that book's great, by the way. But like, you have to teach the skill set. You have to teach the critical thinking skill. And you can't do that by intervening or jumping the gun. So saying no doesn't mean no to me. It means just, it's not my responsibility. It's a skill set you've got to teach, right? And I think early on with entrepreneurship, you're wearing every hat. You're the salesperson, the financial person, the operations person. You're doing all the skills when you start in a one-man team and a 5-man team, and you just keep growing. But at some point, you've got to delegate the critical thinking and the decision-making process. But as a leader, you gotta slow the roll a little bit and let them fail a little bit and give them guidance along the way. So for me, that's the process I go to. So like, I do that in my leadership meetings a little bit more. And it's been awesome to see, because you'll find also in your leadership teams, you'll find that there's one or two people that totally take the ball and run with it. And you wouldn't have known that if you had spoken up, right? So now you start to observe, you get to see which employees really have the desire to find what they are really good at. On a personal note, though, it's been interesting too, because I've learned to say no to some of the social things. Got the E9 club. So we go there, we hang out with the members and all that stuff. And there's kind of two stories with that, but like weekly we can go to the club and hang out and have a good time and, play golf and hang with the members. But I haven't been there to just hang with the members very consistently this year. That was a conscious decision, not because I don't enjoy hanging out with the members. I love hanging out with the members, but because there are other things I'm looking to do. So for example, you go there at night during the weekday, you don't get home till 10:30, 11 o'clock, right? And you've been playing and having a good time, but I keep to my routine. So Friday morning, 4:45 rolls around pretty early. At 6 o'clock the night before on Thursday, I'm getting texts, who's all coming, you're going to be there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'm out, right? because the decision I make at 6 p.m. affects my 4:45 a.m. decision the next morning. I'd rather preserve the 3 hours of stuff that I get done from 4:45 to 7:45 in the morning on Friday, right? So that doesn't then impact my weekend, right? So it's a 3-day impact, that decision at 6 p.m. on Thursday night. It's hard because I want to be there. I want to hang out with the members and my business partner. And when I do show up, they're like, oh, where have you been? And I get crap for that. And that's fine. Or I've been traveling and they're like, oh, you're traveling. Like, well, there are things that I'm working on, but that social aspect, I'm willing to forego that for a little bit because I'm traveling for work, or for the podcast, or I've got business things I got to work on Friday and Saturday. So like, will those same people really remember that 5 years from now, that I bailed on Thursday, March 19th or whatever it was, and I didn't go play golf at E9 for 4 hours, right? I don't know if they will. And I mean, maybe they'll care, maybe they won't. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to care if I'm not moving the needle on my priorities. So like personally, I've had to say no to some social things. And I get it. People are like, well, I don't want to give up the social and I want to do everything. I want to have a successful business and a social business. There is, in my opinion, there is not work-life balance. There is intellectual balance and your emotional balance and your physical balance or your health. So those are the balances. It's not work life. It's not work and personal balance. Like, I don't believe it sits in those buckets. I believe it sits in your mental, your emotional, and your physical balance. I'm making decisions to say no to things that take care of the emotional, mental, and physical balance more so than I am the work-life balance, right? I had a conversation with someone, oh my gosh, this is a couple months ago. And they're like, you're doing so much. How do you seem to like be there for your family. You're there for your friends. You're there for work. And like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you have the energy or whatever. And like, I have the energy and the capacity to do it because I'm saying no to some of the peripheral things, which was not the case probably 2 months ago. Like, I was still balancing it all, but I was exhausted. I had forgotten, right, that's the case. And here's the key to entrepreneurs. People think it's like one success after the other. It's not. It's like the stock market, right? It goes up and you fall and it goes up and it falls. But over the long period of time, right, you get compound interest of 12% or whatever it is in the S&P 500. So it's kind of like, that's the life of an entrepreneur. I fell off the wagon. Truth be told, I was burning the candle at all ends. And John, who went with me in December, he gets it. He was there. We came off our trip with Noah and Bruce in December, and he's just like, and we're talking about what's going on in January. And he's like, holy shit, man, you got so much going on. And I'm like, I know. And we talked on the phone, I think in January sometime. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm fucking exhausted. I like, he's like, hey, and I'm like, I don't know. And that was right before I met with my coach. And then she's just like, hey, maybe you should start saying no again. Right. So like that's kind of like, it's just kind of the cycle, I think, of an entrepreneur. Right. And, I'm not upset by that. Like, it could take the wind out of my sails, and it maybe, maybe the knots came down a little bit in the wind, but I'm back at it. I'm going to give you how the Play Life Differently day looks like, right? This is how I address my day. And I'll probably start with like maybe the day before, right? So I get to the end of the day and I spend probably, it's not long, anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. And I'm going through my day. I'm kept wrapping up notes. I'm kind of thinking, okay, what didn't I get done today that I need to get done? Throughout my day, the day before, I'm calendaring things. Even if it's a task I need to get done, even if it's a 2-second task, it's in the calendar and I squeeze it in. But so I've calendared, for one, the most important things. So I follow my calendar religiously. There's nothing that I move on my calendar, but in general, anything in my calendar that's there, I don't miss. So that's step one. So if it's something at the end of the day, I'm calendaring it for a specific time the next morning to get done. The next day when I get up, this is what Play Life Differently to Marty Cappelle looks like. I'm up at 4:45, pretty much without an alarm anymore. I get up, I have a little bit of water, I do my weigh in, I do my push-ups in the morning. Coffee's already turned on, it's timed, so it's already brewed and made. Grab some coffee, go grab my book and my journal, and I've got about 45 minutes to an hour of reading, journaling, kind of gathering my thoughts. So there's no work in that first 45 minutes to an hour. It is literally absorbing information, because I read, I think maybe it was in the 5 a.m. club and some other things, where your mind is the freshest after a good night's sleep to absorb and to fill the subconscious a little bit with this great brain power that's happening the first thing in the morning when you're clear. So I spend that by feeding my brain with concepts, strategies, lifestyle goals. Like I'm reading some stuff on stoicism. I think that's incredible stuff. Marcus Aurelius, books on stoicism. I'm filling my time and energy, my brain with that. So when I get done with that, right, then I grab a little bit of a bite, maybe it's some Ezekiel bread, raisin toast, which I love, right? But it's low calorie, good food, maybe a little bit of cottage cheese or an egg white omelet or something like that, right? And then I get back to the work. So I'm either at my computer or I'm heading to the office, and then my calendar's ready to go. So typically my first thing that's in my calendar doesn't really get there till maybe about 7:30. Some days, sometimes it's 8:30, where I've got a couple tasks already listed and I just hammer those out. And then I've got client meetings throughout the rest of the day. What's interesting, throughout the day, I get phone calls, emails, so much just comes at me. And a lot of times I'm flagging those emails to handle later so that the things that I've already calendared get done. Here's the other thing that I do is I respond. So if it's something that I need to handle, I've got a pretty good filter, at least with one of my businesses, where if it's something I need to handle, I calendar it. If it's something somebody else needs to handle, I forward in CC and say, take care of this. I'm really good at, throughout the day, if something comes up in the middle, I just push it off, handle at the end, or I'm forwarding it. It's either mine or it's somebody else's. So it's not like rocket science, and I'm sure it could be refined even better. I'm sure there's people that do it way better than I do, but it works for me. And so as I get through the day, I even have calendared in there, like in that time after, I've kind of done my morning routine and I'm sitting down to start my day. I've actually looked at, like, okay, when am I jumping in the sauna today? When am I, eating whatever meal I need to eat, and what does that meal look like? And I'm not prepping it, but I'm just thinking in my head, okay, at 5:30, right, I'm gonna go turn the sun on. It takes 45 minutes to warm up. I'm gonna eat something, and then I'm gonna go do a little bit of a 20, 30-minute workout. Sun will be warm. I jump in the sauna, then I cool down, I shower, right? And by then it's 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and then I'm winding down and heading to bed. So play life differently for me is like, I just am intentional throughout my day that the new, I guess, revisited Marty, right, is like saying no, passing off what I need to, and then just calendaring the most important things. So I probably have on average anywhere from 3 to 10 things that I have to get done that day that are top of mind. And so I'm always thinking about whatever those items are, who does it impact? What's the response look like? How's the other person going to receive my response? Meaning, right, if it's a vendor, right, for E9 that I need to get back to, is it something where I want the perception of how we do business to be X, then I need to respond at this time in a timely manner. It needs to be professional. Like, so I'm thinking about the result of how I want it perceived by whoever I need to give a response to. Same with clients, right? I'm talking, if I need an email gets to respond, I have a rule in my business. Every client gets an email response within 24 hours. It's just, that's the rule. You don't need to know the answer, but they deserve a response. It's a service business, right? So even if it's something that I need to respond to and a team member can't do, I can't hand it off. It's got to come from me, right? I put it in my calendar because I need to be the one that responds to it, and it's a priority. So I have 3 to 10 priorities every day that need to get done, right? So like, I've even got like personal things. I'm running my house, right? Like I'm a single dad, right? So like, there's just shit I gotta do, right? So like the lawn guy calls me, or like, my water heater broke like last couple months, I had to get that replaced. Like, so like I gotta put it in because like with my travel schedule, I gotta figure out when that gets scheduled, right? So like I don't have a personal assistant. I do all that. So I do my travel. Like maybe one day I'll do that. But for now, like I put it in, like weekends I'm booking like when my travel. So I've got time in my calendar for upcoming trips to look at flights and dates and all. I don't do that during my business week. It's a priority, but it's a priority so I've got priorities even on the weekend. I've got stuff in my calendar on the weekend to keep my life moving, right? And so if I were to go to Sunday, which I do a lot, also this is part of Play Life Differently too. On Sunday, I spend probably 30 to 50 minutes, maybe an hour, looking at everything that got done. So I go back through my week and I can see it. I can see all the tasks because they were lit there, right? I could see all the meetings I had, everything I got done. And I'm like, okay, well, did I miss something? That's one, because then it's got to be move up to number one because I didn't do it last week. I got to do it this week, right? But most of the time they're done. It's like I take stock of everything I got accomplished. So Sunday night, I used to dread Sundays, right? I like 5 to 10 years ago. I couldn't sleep Sunday night because I'm like, shit, I got so much to do this week. I'm behind. I didn't get that done, whatever. And that weighs on your mind. So I use that Sunday night then to look and say, okay, well, I got all these things done. And if it's on average 7 things a day times maybe 6 days a week, that's 42 things I got done. Like, that's a good pat on the back. It's a good energy booster. Like, holy crap, look at all this shit I got done, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, here's my priority then for Monday. And I know by Wednesday, I'm gonna have different priorities that just showed up Monday and Tuesday. And so like, that's how I do my week. It's nothing crazy. It's not, I don't have a, like a calendar journal, right? Like the daily focus journals, like I've tried those, right? And challenges, I don't carry it with me, right? Cause I've got other journals I carry, but I use my calendar as kind of like my task journal, make me feel good about things that are getting done. What meetings, if I see holes in my calendar and I know I've got to get some business in, I'm like moving them forward. So like, it's a constant movement of that calendar. And somebody asked me like, well, why don't you just hire someone to manage your calendar? You're traveling, you got meetings, you do all this stuff. You're so busy. I'm like, because at the end, I thought about that hard. In fact, last year, I actually went down the interview process, interviewed a bunch of people to be an executive assistant, personal assistant. I was going to spend the money, go do it. And the more I thought about what I needed, it was the filter of like the decision-making process, right? Of like what needs my attention, what doesn't need my attention. And I ultimately decided that at that point last year and currently this year, like I still want some control over that. And I know that to get to the next level, I'm going to have to hire someone and trust them that they can make those decisions and only come to me with, right? So I'm going to have to say no, doing that myself. I just don't feel like I'm there right now, right? But I know that I will be at some point. So that will be a future progression of the Play Life Differently Marty Cappelle, right? But I made that decision last year to know that I still wanted that control. Because I don't know that it was as conscious at the time that it is today. So for me, I will get to the point where it's so conscious that I could teach it. And if I can teach it, then I can give it up. And so I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, whether it's sales leaders, other leaders in your firm, other employees, whatever. Like, it's hard to teach something you're not really sure exactly what it is yet. I'm in the process today, as we stand, like still learning exactly how I prefer it to get to the next level so well that I can then teach and instruct it. Because there's nothing more maddening than to try and give something to someone to do and they don't do it the way you want to do it. Like entrepreneurs, you're type A, right? Like it's got to be done your way. It's got to be like this way, whatever. You got to be able to give some of that up, but you have to be able to give it up because you trust that person because they get the outcome. They get the vision. I don't know exactly what the vision looks like in my calendaring life or the priorities of my life yet. I still am working on that piece. So this is an evolution, which is exciting to me. It gives me energy to think about how I can evolve it. But that's like my Play Life Differently process, right? So in that vein of saying no to certain things and saying yes to others, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for the way to continue to bring in revenue, sales, grow our businesses. And so there's been this evolution of like, when you start, you want to help everybody you can, right? You're just trying to get your name out there. What do you do? The service you provide. But as time evolves, you can't be everything to all people. That's one. And I think Jordan Belfort says it great, right? Wolf of Wall Street. Sell me this pen, right? So you've all seen that. Sell me this pen. And he's like, do you even fucking need a pen? He's like, don't sell a pen to somebody who doesn't need it. He's like, you need to understand if they need it first. So that's kind of been the approach, right? So as my businesses have evolved, whether it's wealth management or E9, we serve a certain clientele. And I'll use maybe like E9 as a little bit of an example. Like E9 fits a certain prospect as, clientele golfer, right? It's people that want to improve their game. They've got the means to do it. They've got the time to be there and pay because we want them to stay and get involved in the culture. So when we vet them, when they come and do tours, right? Not everybody's a fit just because they think it's a cool concept. We have a screening process for that. And it doesn't mean like they're not good people, like maybe they're good golfers. It doesn't really matter. It's like what fits with the vision of E9, what fits the ultimate culture of E9. And so we've had to turn away some people that were interested. And that's really hard to do because it's like, well, if someone's willing to pay for the membership, just get them on board. It's revenue, right? Problem I see with that over time is that if they're not the right fit, eventually will cause a problem downstream, meaning maybe they'll stop paying their membership dues. Maybe they won't fit in the culture, and that changes the vibe. And so then you lose some other members because the culture's changed, or maybe they just quit after, they want to get out of their 12-month contract. There's problems that creates potentially down the road. And those problems are more than just the one decision to take them on as a member, and the same is true, a little bit in the wealth management. So how do I handle serving the people we want to serve and the right people? I think a lot of it comes down to, am I crystal clear on the people that we can help? And then how do I articulate that, for one, so that the prospect understands whether or not it's a fit for them, right? But I'm also asking, questions on what are their needs? What do they really want solved? So I'm not taking them at face value. We're asking deeper questions about what their needs are, what their goals are. And I'm filtering through their answers whether or not we're a fit. Because at the end of the day, all business, all relationships is a two-way street. You cannot be largely successful, if it's a one-way street. If it's a one-way street where like they're just buying something, but they're not engaged for the long term, they're just a customer, they're not a client. And for us, if we're building a business of relationships for clients, and we accept that, then there's more potential problems down the road with servicing that particular member or client. So I think a lot of it comes down to better understanding, asking better questions about what their problems is, and are we the right fit? And there's nothing wrong with saying, like, I don't think we're the right fit. What that obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but like what it lets you do is leave the door open for the next person that is the exact fit that you're looking for. It's hard to not go after every sale, every opportunity, but I think the more crystal clear you can be about who you serve, how you do it, what you're providing, and then get a really good understanding of what people are looking for, what they really desire, then you come across actually way more authentic and say like, hey, John, I don't think we're a good fit. Here's why. Here's what we do. You think we're a fit, but I don't think we're a fit. Here's why. But I can point you in the direction that maybe this would be a better fit. Why don't you try that out? And I never shut the door either. I never tell them to go pound sand or anything, because that's not professional and it's just not who I am. But I would rather point them in a better direction so that their needs are met. I could care less about the short-term gain that we have in our business for that in the moment. I care more about the long-term. So it's really taking a long-term view, but it's hard, right? And for those of you that follow social media and you follow the people that are doing coaching on stage and live events and all of that stuff, and they're talking about how, their ticket item price has gone up over time, right? Do you want one client that pays $1,000 or 10 clients pay $1,000 or one client pays $10,000, right? Like the level of engagement changes with that, but you got to also then provide the service and the value for that. Saying no provides way more freedom to stay true to like the value that you want to provide. So there's a lot of benefits that always come back to being, what can you do to articulate the value that you want to provide? But you got to be clear on that to begin with. When you're saying no, you're freeing up time so that you can say yes to the right opportunities. The way I see that happening, and I've seen it happen in the past, and I continue to see it happening with successful people, right, is that if you say no to the pseudo right things, or maybe not quite right things, right, it's taking time and energy and effort away from things that are more on point or exact with like the roadmap that you're heading down. So what do you do then? Like if you say no, what do you do with that time? I never go into something without like an escape hatch, I guess if you want to call it that. Like for me, anytime there's an opportunity, whether it's a new prospect, a new event, or something I'm going to do, I am always preparing. So this is true for all entrepreneurs. You want to be successful. You never go into a sales call like winging it. You need to know who you're talking to, what you're talking. So here's an example. Like I'll give this, right? So like we had Bruce Bowen on the podcast, right? So I met Bruce, we hit it off, whatever. I asked him to be in the podcast. He was very gracious, said yes. And as soon as he said yes, right, when I was like, okay, this was a crazy idea. We're on the golf range. I'm just going to ask him. He says yes. But in that split second, before I even asked him, I remember sitting on the range. I remember thinking, God, he's kind of asking a lot of questions about play life differently. And it probably took me 2, 3 minutes to get up the courage to even ask him if he would be a guest. But in those 2 or 3 minutes, I was like, well, okay, if he says no, I didn't lose anything, right? Like, no big deal, right? What if he says yes? I was like, shit, this guy says yes. Like, he's an NBA superstar. He's like very successful. Like, then what? Right. So, like, in those 2 or 3 minutes before I actually asked the question, you got to remember your brain goes super fast, right? So I was like, okay, well, if he says yes, right, then I'll, play it cool. We'll hang out, playing golf, and so I just walked through my head, okay, like, if he says yes, be cool. Don't be too excited. Don't, like, don't freak out. Be like, oh my God, give him a big bear hug. Like, don't act like a jerk, right? Like he's a normal guy. He's being super gracious. Like, I can tell by that. So, like, don't freak out, but like, then just be, okay, great. Well, why don't we exchange contact information? We'll plan it out like for a couple months. So I'm already kind of thinking of, okay, well, what's his world like, right? He's here. He had been flown in Chicago to meet somebody else. And now he said, what if he says yes? Like, okay, now I have to deal with like whatever he's got going on in his life. I've got to make sure that there's value there. If he says yes, he thinks there's some value. So I got to find out what that is. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about all these questions about like, okay, what would be so intriguing to him that he would say yes if he did. So I immediately went down a checklist of things to understand Bruce a little bit better, because I want to make sure that if he says yes, there's value to Bruce. That's part of like saying no to things leaves opportunity to say yes, but then you've got to prepare and plan for what if it says yes? What if the opportunity is a go? You get the green light. Are you then prepared to do the work so that you're not just winging it? Because when you're making asks for a sale or for an invitation, you don't want to miss the opportunity after you've been so courageous to make the ask. Like that's the worst. It's like, oh my God, I got the sale. And then you can't fucking deliver. Like, are you kidding me? Like, the hardest part sometimes, and some people do that. Some people, like, they've got all the courage in the world and they can ask everything, but then they fail on delivery. Like, have you ever met someone like that? Where you're like, God, they were so jacked up, all this energy, and then it just kind of fizzled out and they didn't deliver. And like, to me, that is so frustrating. So I guess maybe that's one of my values, right? Is like, if I say yes, I want to make sure I deliver. And so if he's going to say yes, then I have to deliver. And so I start then preparing, right? And so that's one example where then I spent a month and a half before we got it scheduled. After he said yes, we exchanged numbers, we did all this stuff, right? And then I just kind of went through, I looked at his career stats, I went through his history, and and so then my editor and I, we were flying out there and we're taking all these notes. I'm like, okay, well, what are some things that we can ask him? Like, we got to, what's he going to get out of this? And so we're trying to find ways where he could share the most important things in his life with the podcast, with you all, because then it's valuable to him, right? He's coaching now, right? He's doing executive coaching and things like that. So like, I want to be able to have him use the platform so that it can further the things that he's doing, right? So that it's a win for him. So saying no, though, is one part, but it gives you these other opportunities that you have to be prepared for, that if they take off, you have to be ready for the work. In my opinion, successful people do not get into a position where they get into something and they're underprepared. They're typically overprepared, right? And they're very thoughtful and intentional. So that's very true to play life differently. We're very thoughtful and intentional. So anytime there's an opportunity, right, I want to make sure like that if that's the case, I can be prepared. So I'll give you like another example. I had our architect for E9 calls me. We're talking about E9. He says, hey, by the way, would you mind? Right. So here comes the ask. And he's like, would you mind? I've got this young guy down in Florida. He wants to build like this basketball center, blah, 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 blah. But he's a little green. Would you mind spending a little bit of time with him? I'm sure. Happy to do that. Right. I'll give whatever. So I'm like, just connect us via email. Don't do it via text. Cause like email gives me time to respond and prioritize it in my calendar, whatever. Like, so that happens. And I ended up talking to the guy, and super sharp young guy down in Florida. And he was so prepared for that phone call. And it was supposed to be 20, 30 minutes. It ended up being a little over an hour. And the reason we spent so much more time than what was allotted is because we were so prepared. And here's how I know that was the case. One, He asked very intelligent questions. He had asked specifics about LLCs. He asked specifics about structure and financing and, all the things that we had done for E9, because we had been through it. And so I told him, here's some of the pitfalls. Here's the advisors you need to get. You need to get this kind of attorney. You need to have this kind of bank. So I don't have those contexts, but I said, like, these are the qualifications of what you're looking for, because if you go down the rabbit hole and they're not in that world, like, you're going to waste a lot of time. And so he asked all the right questions. So that was one. And then two, at the end of the call, he summed it up and he said, thank you so much for your time. You gave me more than what we had on the calendar, so I appreciate that. But I have 3 pages of notes. Do you mind if I have further questions, that I reach out to you? And I was like, hands down, hands down. And I didn't respond right away. I paused on the phone, right? Maybe for effect, but right. But I paused on the phone. I was like, let me think about this. Okay. He was pretty well prepared. If he does the work and it follows up on the 3 pages of notes he took, and he's got further questions, they're probably going to be the right questions. He's not going to come back to me and ask the same questions he just asked me. So I'm happy to spend a little bit more time with him. And then here's where the courage and saying no to one thing and saying yes to another happened. He's like, this is awesome. He's like, well, if you're ever down here, if you need anything, whatever. And I'm like, great. I'm like, actually, I have a favor to ask. He's like, yeah, what's that? He's like, you've been so helpful. I said, well, my favor is, like, these are the type of people that I help in my business. So if you know those folks and they're good character, and I gave them kind of the qualifications of the who people we work with, and I said, I don't anticipate you knowing if they need us or not, but, like, I would love the introduction, just as how the architect introduced us. It's a phone call, but maybe I can help them one day. And he said, oh my God, absolutely. I've got you in my phone. Like, if I ever have these conversations, I'll certainly make introductions and referrals to you. And then he follows up and said, and when my business is successful, you'll be the first person I call. What's interesting about that story, right, is that I know it's like I didn't say no to the architect to take the call, right? But it was a 20-minute, sure, I'll do you a favor, because our architect had helped a lot, right? And then it turned into meeting someone that I think in his career will probably be very successful, right? And so I gave first, I didn't think there was anything in it for me at all. And I still don't at this point, but over an hour later, I made my ask, because I just spent giving him his ask for an hour. So that's where, like, opportunity kind of comes up, but I fully expect nothing out of that at all. Right. Taking the time to always be filtering what's the intention, what's the value proposition I can give, how am I helping others? I think with others in mind, through the lens, here's the difference, right? Am I helping others through the lens of my needs are being met? Meaning it's not purely altruistic. Nobody really does things altruistic unless you're a saint, right? But, like, I think at the end of the day, we're looking for validation, we're looking for growth, we're looking for all these things, but I'm not trying to help somebody just so that I get something out of it. I'm helping them to help them, but only if I can absolutely be the one to help them. And if I can, I know there's value, then I can ask for help in return. So I'm hoping that resonates a little bit, right? But relationships are two-way streets. So I tend to look at, if it's not something that I can provide value to, or that I'm not really good at, that's my filter. I say no. If it is something I'm really good at and it gives me energy, I will put everything I have into it, but that moves the needle for me in my businesses or my personal life. So my no is through the filter of, is it something I can genuinely and authentically help at a very real level? And if it's not, I got to say no, or I got to redirect. So I think as successful entrepreneurs, saying no leads to being yes in what you're good at, right? Is you got to get really good at the filters on a daily, almost every conversation you've got to be really good at. It's funny, I'm having this thought as we're sitting here, like, I'm just replaying in my mind, even like today, right? My morning, the things I've already done today before I came to this podcast to do this. Like, there isn't, I don't know if there's even like 10 minutes of my day so far where I have not filtered phone call that I've had, a meeting I've done, everything. So like, even like, here's another example. This is just how the day goes, right? So it's a Friday. So I get my massages on Fridays, right? That's the end of the week. It work out the stress and the toxins from the week, right? And so I'm sitting there and we just lost our cleaning service at E9, right? And so I'm sitting there and we're talking to my massage therapist, we're going back and forth, but she knows a ton of people and like, hey, what's new, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, like it came up. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm actually like, I got to find a new cleaning service for E9. She's like, oh my God, I've got someone. I'm getting a massage and I'm like asking for a referral for the cleaning service at E9, right? And I walk out of there and I'm like, and she's like, oh my God, they're phenomenal. They're so good. They're reasonably priced, blah, 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 blah. And for like 3 weeks, we haven't had a cleaning service. And I'm like, opportunity, but I'm doing two things at once. Like there's not anything that goes kind of like missed. It's so funny because then I'll get to Sunday night to kind of put a circle on this, like get back to the beginning is like, I'll get to Sunday night and I'll do my wins for the week, right? The 42 things I got done for the week. One of them was I got to make some phone calls to find a new cleaning service, right? Well, box checked. I didn't make one phone call, but I asked in the middle of something else. I guess the point to that and putting a bow on that is that just about every conversation I have is I'm filtering through how do I provide value or how do I move the needle in some way. And some of them aren't massive needles that are being moved, but everything has some intention, right? And sometimes the intention is like, hey, I just want to know how you're doing. Like sometimes it's just personal, right? And there's no business agenda, and that's totally fine. But my intention with that is to develop the relationship with that person. That moves the needle in my relationship world. You know, I find even in my personal life, I don't ask questions of friends and family that isn't thinking about what's going on in their world or what's next for them or the stressors they have. I do that with my daughters and my parents and my siblings and my friends. Like, and you can ask some of my friends, right? They probably tell you like, Marty's really not the guy to like, you know, shoot the shit and talk about the Cubs. And I don't even know who the Cubs players are. And I have season tickets. Like, what the fuck, right? But like, to me, and people will be like, oh my God, you're not a fan. Like, no, I'm a fan. But like, if I'm going to go to a Cubs game with some buddies, right? Like, I want to know what's going on with their kids and like, you know, can I provide some support, emotional support, or give them a hell yeah, great job or whatever. But, you know, I'm just going to listen when, you know, my buddies are talking about, you know, how many RBIs somebody got or how many home runs or the misplay they had. Like I saw it, but I'm not going to remember that tomorrow. But I'm going to remember that Johnny said like, hey, his 16-year-old's got this shit going on. And you know, because then I'm going to be thinking about Johnny 2 days later, I'm gonna shoot him a text, be like, hey, I had the conversation with your son this weekend. Right. So like, I think in my life, that's my hope is anyway, that's more meaningful to Johnny than it is, you know, that the fact that we shot the shit and talked about how the players in the field are doing. So I guess what I'm telling you, like, that's for me playing life differently. And I didn't understand what that was a couple years ago. I just felt inadequate in social situations because I couldn't contribute to sports conversations. I couldn't, you know, and I felt bad about myself, about my self-esteem in that regard was pretty low. Now I don't give a fuck. Like, that's the deal. Like, you know, we can have conversations and, you know, I can laugh and joke but I'm going to sit quietly by. I'm not going to be able to contribute to sports stats. It's just not what's going to happen. But, you know, if someone brings up something hard and don't get me wrong, it's relevant, right? It's not like all of a sudden we're getting super deep at a party. Right. And we're talking about life, you know, really hard life shit. But I guarantee you, like, I'm going to follow up one-on-one if that's needed and if that's, you know, desirable. And so that my relationship shows up down the road with them where they're like, yeah, Marty was there. He remembered me. He was supportive of this problem or cheering me on for this success. So that's play life differently. I want to have impact. And that's where I think play life differently and the impact comes from. So I've covered a lot today. I have bared my soul, if you will, told you about the struggles the last couple months, how I've gotten re-engaged with play life differently in my daily life. I want to leave you with just a couple things, like 5 things today that I want you to start today doing. And I want you to click subscribe, and I want you to tell me in a month, a week, a month, whatever it is, comment, tell us what you've changed, what you've done from this podcast. where you can see the change in your life to be more intentional with what's going on. So here's the 5 things. The first, take stock of your week on Sunday. Don't start your week on Monday, start it Sunday night. Take stock, look back at your calendar your week and take the 20 or 30 minutes and write down all of the things you got done and the things you didn't. And do that every Sunday night. Write them down, and I guarantee you, week after week, you'll get more things done, and there'll be less things left over from the week before. That's one. Write it down Sunday night. Number 2, plan your day. It starts the night before. What are the priorities? For me, Play Life Differently, it's calendaring my priorities for the day. I do not miss any appointment on my calendar. If that works for you, start using your calendar to schedule tasks that need to get done by the end of the day. That's number 2, calendaring. Number 3, this is incredibly important. How do you say no to say yes? The filter. What is your filter? What do you love to do and what are you good at? Anything that falls outside of what do you love and what are you good at, you got to identify who else can do it. Is it a family member, household task? Is it a colleague, employee? The filter, you have to come up with 1 or 2 questions that you can ask in a microsecond when a decision needs to be made on a task or a problem that needs to be solved. Is it something I love? And is it something I'm good at? And if not, then who? Number 4, you have to be crystal clear as what moves the needle towards your goals, right? Trim the fat, get down to the muscle, get super clear on what it is you're trying to achieve. And every decision gets passed through that lens. It's the little things that distract us and keep us from what we're doing. That's why, number 3, like finding out like what you're good at. But like number 4, you have to develop the muscle to like understand how important is this task to my goal, right? And it could be a personal goal, business goal, doesn't matter. Like you got to pick up the kids at 4:00. Okay, if there's something that gets in the way of getting there on time, right? And that's important to you to be on time, right? Then that thing that got in the way can wait or be pushed off to something else. So you got to get crystal clear on what the intention is. Write it down, know what your intention is. You have to work the conscious mind in the decision-making process. It's more about being conscious about the decisions we're making than anything else, right? Number 4, you have to begin to work the muscle that builds your conscious mind to making decisions real time. We get 1,000 decisions a day, 1,000 decisions, maybe more, 10,000 decisions. It doesn't really matter. And they're micro decisions. You have to slow down and build your conscious mind muscle in the moment to filter out all of the fat, all of the noise, and just get to, is this an important decision that I need to address right now versus getting distracted with all these micro decisions along the way. So number 4, build the conscious mind every day, build that muscle to stop and filter and only deal with the things that are most important. Number 5, give yourself some grace and some humility, but never settle. Keep the expectations of yourself moving forward. You can achieve more than you ever thought possible. True to the Play Life Differently. If I have the capability, I have the responsibility. So give yourself some grace, count your successes, but never settle. Keep moving the needle, keep pushing your expectations, and keep pushing your capabilities every day, every week, every month. Just because you're high expectations, highly driven, highly motivated, right? And maybe even have some pride in the work you've done, doesn't mean you settle for mediocrity. You can always improve. You can always get better. Life is about growth. Play Life Differently is about growth mindedness and pushing your capabilities and owning the responsibility to get those things done for yourself and the people in your world. So Play Life Differently. Click subscribe, comment how these 5 things are helping you, and we'll see you next time.